Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Heidi Horsley, and I'm here today talking about grief and the preservation of self. And I'm very interested to talk about this topic because I know when my brother died, it was really hard to take care of myself, and I often felt guilty when I would take care of myself or worried that other people were judging me. So how do we do that? How do we find hope again after loss? And we have two wonderful guests that know a lot about this. Our guests today are Tysha Scott and Ann Smith. They have both had very significant losses in their lives. Before I introduce them, I just want to say that we are going to close the show with Ann singing a powerful song. Ann lost her sister Cathy to anorexia. So welcome to our show, Tysha and Ann.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, I look forward.
With the both of you.
Thank you. I look forward to this conversation. So let me introduce Tysha first, because you're sitting closest. Tysha is the owner and management consultant of TS Management Consulting, and she is the executive board member of Classic Stage Company. Her heartfelt passion is theater. She was a child performer and attended the famous Fame High School of Performing Arts in New York City. Very impressive. I live 2 blocks away. 10,000 kids applied last year to get into this school, just to let you know how difficult it is. For 15 years, Tysha's been a theater teacher and theater teaching artist for middle school, high school, and college. She was married to the love of her life, Phillip Randall Scott, a successful attorney for 30 years until his untimely and sudden death. They had 2 beautiful children together, and they still have 2 beautiful children, a son and a daughter. Welcome, Tysha.
Thank you.
And right next to Tysha is Ann Smith. Ann is one of 9 children, and her sister Cathy died from complications due to anorexia when she was 36 years old. Ann is a singer-songwriter, musician, and artist. She has written the book, The Dancing Tree's Secret, as a way to explain to young children that dying and loss are like dancers who are changing their form. And I love that, Ann. She wrote this book for her 2 young nieces after their mother, who was Ann's sister, died. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you.
So I think I'm going to start out with just having you tell a little bit about your loss. So Tysha, do you want to start?
Yes, thank you. June 13, 2020, which was clearly a pandemic, our daughter graduated from high school. It was not your typical graduation. Unfortunately, we were in the heat of the pandemic at that time, and we ended up having to watch a very modified graduation ceremony on television. My husband was excited. We had planned the next 10 to 15 years of our lives. At least I had planned the next 10 to 15 years of our lives. And I says, okay, we're in a pandemic, but this is our empty nest child. You know, our oldest has graduated college. He's working. He's successful. Babe, this is this. We've worked for this. We've worked hard for this. This is exciting. We are on to the next chapter, even though we are in a pandemic and there is death around us and it is depressing, but nonetheless, we have an emptiness life ready for us. June 13, 2020, we had a lovely graduation. 7 days to the date, June 2020, in the middle of a conversation with my husband, he told me that he was dizzy and he had a sudden cardiac arrest right in front of me.
Wow, that's shocking.
2 weeks later, I buried him. 6 weeks later, I dropped our daughter off at Wake Forest University, freshman year in a pandemic. Without her father, she was 17 and a half years old. And I am sitting in the sea of fear, anxiety, depression, grief, pandemic, loneliness, isolation.
Yeah.
So what do? I come home from dropping her off. My son is traveling for work, and I'm sitting in the house with the dog alone. That 10 to 15 year plan was obliterated in a matter of 30 seconds. And I'll add, on that day, we had just completed a honkin' wave celebration for our daughter, a graduation celebration.
And the honkin' wave is what?
I'm sorry, a honkin' wave was a modified graduation party.
Okay.
Sort of that modified, oh, hi, we can't come in the house.
Yeah.
We're wearing masks, so
Yeah.
we're going to drive by. We're going to give you some celebratory snacks. And good luck, Morgan. And a few pictures were taken. And so that was considered our graduation celebration for her. Not in a million years did I think in 7 days, catastrophically, our life would change.
I was going to say your life was completely turned upside down.
Upside down in 7 days. And it was already turned upside down, right?
Yeah.
We were already in a sea of the unexpected and the unknown with the pandemic.
Yeah.
But we had each other, and we had a plan. And she was going to college, and we were sitting in that
and you were entering the
newness.
next era of your life as empty nesters.
Exactly. With a plan for 10 years.
Wow.
And everything happened so quickly that I had to bury him 2 weeks after that. So we had graduation June 13, June 20, 27 days later, he passes. 2 weeks later, I bury him. Now I've got to get her to college in 6 weeks, freshman year. And the worry and concern about her stability. You know, now I am a solo parent, I'm a widow. I've gotten all these unexpected titles that I don't know what to do with.
Right. Okay.
And where to go with that.
We're going to stop you there because we are going to find out where you went. Anne, tell us a little bit about your story.
I come from a big family of teachers, and I was teaching here in New York the day I found out that Cathy had died, and I just remember feeling very shocked. She had struggled with anorexia since high school, and always had managed to fight her way back. And so she left behind, at the time, a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old girls. And it was just what happened after she died. The girls were half-sisters, different dads. And our family went to court for custody of the children, and the family courts decided to separate the girls and give them back to their biological fathers in different states. And I describe the feeling of when you lose someone, I say it's like your blood stops and then it starts going in the opposite direction. It's very disorienting. And I think coming from such a big family, you think, oh, well, there would be such a support system, and there is. We have a very tight-knit clan. But in some way, it almost magnifies the grief so much more because you have so many people that are so close grieving at the same time, each in their different way. So there was a lot of anger in me over the outcome of the court decision. I kind of threw myself into work and working so much with preschool through 4 and 5-year-olds at that time that I just felt their innocence and their beauty and their loving nature. And I was teaching music and art at a private school. And that's really a lot of what kept me balanced at that time. As the years went by, I found myself wanting to explain to children what is dying. Because there's a lot of confusion for children. Children are very sophisticated. They're very intuitive. And I think a lot of times they're confused when they hear up in heaven or, you know, mommy went away, she's not coming back, these things. And so I sought to find a way to explain to these little girls another way, another perspective of looking at dying, which is transformation. And I chose dancers as the vehicle for that message. And writing the book, The Dancing Tree's Secret, was a tremendous healing process for me.
So it sounds like that's part of what helped you.
The arts.
To heal, and we're gonna get back to that because it reminds me of Tysha. Now I'm wondering, Anne has said, okay, this is kind of what's helped me, and I know you're both very artistic. You've left us as a cliffhanger. Okay, Heidi, my world has been turned upside down. My identity has been lost. I'm now alone. How do you move forward from that? I mean, what at that point?
The first inclination, to be quite honest with you, was I'll never forget the day being at home, taking a nap, and waking up, and thinking that I had to get my daughter to dance class, or to her dance team, or to senior year, or that I had to take the dog out, which I did have to take the dog out. But I went instantly back to a life in January 2020, and then I sat up and realized I'm alone, and said, if I don't do something right now, I will go over to the edge. I will go to that other side. And I called my grief coach. And I said, actually, she called me. She had opened, I found this wonderful program that someone just sent to me. And I called her. Her name was, the group is called Widowed Not Alone. And she said, I don't know, I was just thinking about you. I sat down to have a cup of tea, and I actually decided to open up my Bible, and something said, shut your book and call Tysha. Wow. And I said, I am not doing well at this moment. It is September 25th. I'll never forget the day. And I says, and at this moment, I think that I am, I understand what the term nervous breakdown means. And I'd never understood that term. And she said, get out of the house and start walking and scream and purge. And as I was walking, I recognized this isn't going to work for me. I have decided I want to live. But how do I do that? How do I look at those two children that are staring at me too? Please, mommy, don't die. So I threw everything into, I've got to get my daughter out of college the next 4 years. I don't care what I have to support her. I have to support my son and, you know, my 25-year-old son at that time to make sure that he understands that I'm here for him. That went on for a month when I recognized I wasn't eating. I was not going to the doctor. I wasn't feeling well. I had headaches. I lost 20 pounds. And then it took 3 months for me to figure out I need to take care of also myself. I have to figure out what's going to propel me forward. What's going to propel me to move forward? I didn't want to get out of bed. Taking deep breaths was painful, incredibly painful to breathe. And I received a phone call from the current artistic producing director and a principal friend of mine who said, both of them in different ways said the same thing. We have these programs, we'd like you, one of the theater companies said, we'd like you to join the board of directors because we really need your skill set and we suspect that you need us as well.
Wow.
And the principal said, I need what you've been doing for some of the other schools, and I also suspect that you need us as well at this time in your life. It will all be on Zoom because we could not go into class at the time. And I said yes. And I said yes to the both of them, knowing that it would propel me in some stage of a little bit of normalcy, but a newness in my life. And I didn't know what to expect. I said it could be catastrophic, right? But at that moment when I understood, wow, this isolation, this grief, this intensity must be what a nervous breakdown must feel like. And I'm not going there because I realized, I said, I love myself at this moment too much. And I do have 2 young people depending on me.
Right. Okay.
But it took 3 months for me to start thinking about myself. Because I still
good for people out there to hear from a time perspective.
It took a while. I couldn't get out of bed. Until I said, now I don't feel well. I looked in the mirror, I've lost 20 pounds. So how am I effectively looking at these 2 young adults, a freshman who's in college in a pandemic, who can't lose me if I'm not taking care of myself?
Exactly.
So the first thing I made is a doctor's appointment.
I love it. That was the beginning.
That was the beginning, a doctor's appointment. Is it incredible how something as simple as picking up the phone to make an appointment can catapult you to saving your health and saving your mental state?
So Anne, what comes up for you as far as how did you, I mean, here your sisters died. How did you move forward? How did you find hope? I mean, what helped you? I know you said the book.
Yes.
Writing that.
And I think, I'll say it again, just being around children so much and just giving into that lovingness and the innocence. I think isolating yourself is very, very unhealthy. And I was living alone in New York at that time, and New York is a really great place to feel alone. Because you're surrounded by so many people. So it kind of magnifies again. But I think journaling, I didn't feel like talking to anybody about it. I had a lot of, the anger was what really bothered me a lot. I couldn't sleep. I was just so upset. And
what were you angry at? I mean, I know there's a lot to be angry at.
I wasn't angry that, well, it was upsetting that Cathy died,
Yeah.
but I just didn't expect the outcome of the girls losing each other and their mom. And just seeing what that did to our parents, you know, it was just it seemed like an insurmountable grief.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of journaling, and the images that kept coming through in journaling were of trees putting down roots and then growing together. What happens when the trees get cut down? You know, they're uprooted, they're transported, they're made into other objects. I wrote a lot about trees in my journal, trees that were growing by water that fell into the water and became waterlogged with, I related that to my tears, like just feeling so heavy with tears. And I was so like face down in the water like a log just floating along. And so all of these things came up about relating to trees, and that's the Dancing Trees secret started to take shape.
What about your music? Did that help you at all, or did you feel like you didn't want to sing?
It did help me. I'm a professional singer, and of course, even singing at services for other people's funerals, it's very hard to do when you're a vocalist. It's very emotional. But I remember singing at Cathy's funeral service On a Clear Day, the Broadway song.
Yeah.
You'll feel part of every mountain, sea, and shore. You can hear from far and near a world you've never seen before. Subsequently, after singing that song at her funeral, I would hear it in elevators. I would hear it in a dentist's office.
Yeah.
And on the anniversary of her death, about 10 years later, I was visiting the North End in Boston where she used to live. There was a trumpet player standing on a curb. When the cab pulled into the neighborhood, the windows were down. He was playing On a Clear Day.
Wow.
So music has always been a great message to me, that an energy source of our loved ones, that their vibrations, their emotions surround us constantly. We have to be open to that shift in our perception that we've lost. It's a change of form. It's a change of energy.
I like this. So, Tysha, I'm wondering, what would you say to people out there that have just lost a spouse? They don't know how they're going to survive, and maybe they don't even want to.
That they are so not alone. That all of those feelings are valid, they are real, you are not crazy. That grief, we don't discuss grief enough in our world, in our country. It's not given enough attention, right? It's not under, and it's not under, it's almost like a taboo subject. That whatever works for you in finding help. I knew I needed to as much as I could be around people any way I could. So I started attending the Widowed Not Alone. I did the research online.
So
what widower supports are available, programs are available. Widowed Not Alone. Soaring Spirits International.
Which is where we met.
Yep. Those are two wonderful resources for widow and widowers. Also, how do you show up for yourself? And that could be the first step. Get out of bed and brush your teeth.
Yep.
Wash your hair and go take a walk. Then you could say, in this day, I made a movement step forward for my life. It could be start with baby steps, right? And I think that we're go see a therapist and go see a grief coach. Yeah, those things are important. But if you're not sure how to take that next breath, and I have been there, that each breath is painful. Well, let me start by taking a cold shower, a warm shower, or a bath to feel better. Check that off the list.
I like this. I like these goals that are small, so you don't
attainable, small.
A
walk.
When my brother died, I was so overwhelmed with grief that I couldn't put jewelry on.
Absolutely.
And so I like this idea, because maybe mine would be, okay, put earrings on.
Right.
That's the goal today.
Right. What did you like before? What made you happy before your person died? Your sister, your mother, your father, your brother. Did you like wearing jewelry?
Yeah.
Did you like listening to music? What was it what was special? What was a special bond between you and your person, that person? With us, it was dancing. Phil and I, we like to dance, but he knew I liked listening to music. And I found out 20 years into our marriage that he loved butterflies.
Wow.
Well, when I started taking those walks, butterflies started following me. My daughter said when she left her freshman dorm, she said her roommate said, I know I'm not crazy, but I have a question to ask you. I hope you don't think I'm a little crazy. She says, do you notice that butterflies kind of follow you when we leave the dorm room? This is how they show up in our lives. Pay attention to that. But if you could just pay attention to something about yourself that will catapult you from getting out of that bed to taking that deep breath and washing your hair, brushing your teeth, having a meal, recognizing that food intake and nourishment is important to the grief process, and finding one support.
So Anne, I'm wondering the same question, but what would you say to someone out there that's had a sibling loss and isn't sure how they're going to survive this?
Well, I think in general, grief is like we were saying, it's kind of one of those subjects the Compassionate Friends organization is wonderful. That's where you and I met.
Yes, you were performing there.
Yes.
It was amazing.
I think that the most important thing that helps me is, and that I would tell other people, is to use the emotion that you're going through as a springboard. I think anger is a more galvanizing feeling to go out for a run and burn it off. I think it's almost a healthier feeling than just that lethargy and that like so overwhelmed that you can't put your earrings on. That's a very overwhelming, dangerous place to stay in.
Yes.
And I think even if you can use that anger as something to spark a change in your routine, go out for a walk, cause a shift physically, in your body and your chemistry. So I think to use whatever emotion you have at the time, whatever feeling, and think of that feeling as a springboard into the next phase.
And also try something new, right? I recognized, my husband, Phillip Randall Scott, and I say his name, and you say your sister's name and your brother, right? We say their names to keep them current, their spirit and their energy with us, right? His job, National Grid, was wanted to honor him in a way that would be lasting. So they started the Phillip Randall Scott internship program, hiring interns from his law school every summer.
Beautiful.
And I got engaged in that project. So that was healing, right? But recognizing everybody doesn't have that, right? So is there something that you've always wanted to do? Take a scrapbook class, a painting class. Is there after you've taken that walk, now you have the courage to let me sign up for a painting class. Do something that is a little out of the ordinary for you, but something you've always wanted to do, which is part of the healing process. It might turn out that you don't like scrapbooking or the paint class or sculpturing, but I tried it. Now that gives me, fear is a powerful emotion. False evidence appearing real, sometimes fear, but sometimes you have to do it in fear. 95% of the stuff I did was in fear.
Okay, so we are going to need to wrap up. Please get Anne's book, and thank you both so much for being on.
Thank you.
And at Open to Hope, we like to close by saying, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless. We are going to close the show with Anne singing a powerful song.
A voice on the phone, a face in the crowd can catch me by surprise. And I found myself suddenly drowning in the memory of your brown eyes. If I'm alone, I take a deep breath and give in to the tears. It feels like the same day I lost you, after all these years. Like some kind of addict, I go through your pictures till I find the one. That one where your body's so smooth and so tan that I can feel the sun. I look at the time and hours gone by, but I don't try to move. It feels like the same day I lost you, and it just goes to prove, it just goes to prove that it's still dangerous to wonder where you are. It's still dangerous to even wish upon a star. I guess time will tell me when it's safe to speak your name, but it's still dangerous to think I'll ever be the same without you. Life keeps moving on, I get pulled along, and there are some good days. If I can't eat or sleep, I make up for it in other ways. Your house has been emptied, everything sold, but memories remain. They ache for the one that is missing, just like a phantom pain, just like a phantom pain. And it's still dangerous to think about your touch. It's still dangerous when I miss you so much. I guess time will tell me when it's safe to speak your name, but it's still dangerous to think I'll ever be the same without you.
The loss of a loved one can leave you feeling depressed, angry, alone, lost. But you don't have to face this journey on your own. Open to Hope is a free community for anyone who has experienced loss. Give grief a voice at opentohope.com.